Empezamos el tercer taller.
We start now the third workshop within the first day of workshops of this course of Natural Fertility Awareness. And it is for me a true pleasure to introduce somebody who doesn't need any introduction, or two persons who don't need an introduction. I'm going to start by Dr. Enrique Rojas, whom I know since many, many years, and who is the father of Marian Rojas. They are both psychiatrists, born psychiatrists, very well known internationally. Some data, Enrique is professor of psychiatry. He has been an expert for many years. He has been spreading and treating, he has been treating anxiety and depression, but also family conflicts, aspects related to sexuality. Very few people can say in Spain that they have lost 3 million books. I don't know how he did that, but he has been able to help many, many people, but at the same time spread in a way that we are able to understand the diseases of psyche, of the soul. So in this workshop, he and his daughter Marian, who follows him very close, she has also sent 400,000 books already of the previous book, How to Make Good Things Happen to You. And now she has the vitamin persons as well. She's behind the screen. They are going to speak about a topic that we believe is interesting, love and falling in love. 7 rules, golden rules to live as a couple. You organize it as you wish, and there we are. Thank you very much.
Ahora sí. Buenos días a todos los que están.
Good morning, everybody, those of you that are here and those of you that are listening to us online. I'm very happy to be here today because Marian, my eldest daughter, I've got 5 children, studied at the University of Navarre, and my smallest child, Almudena, also studied here, law and politics. And it was very emotional to come back to this university. So I want Marian to start off with, as we pointed out the other day, I want you to start by delivering a presentation on how to choose your partner properly. And then I'll continue. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, Dr. Luis Chiva. I don't have enough words to express how much I like you. So it's very emotional to be invited to this event and to speak to my father, Dr. Enrique Rojas. I would have liked to have been there in person because Pamplona is very special, but I'm afraid that I couldn't sort out certain family issues. But I prepared this so that all of you people that are connected and listening in so that we can spend some minutes together, so that we can make it very useful. We want to talk about love, falling in love, and couples. This could take hours, of course, but in any case, just a few brushstrokes on the most important issues. When we work in couple therapy in our office in Madrid, I saw lots of crises, and one of the things that most surprised me had to do with behavioral patterns and with surrendering and with not being selfish. There was something that I was thinking about all the time, and that is that I believe that these 2 people shouldn't have got married in the first place because they are totally incompatible, and that made my sister and myself and the doctor will consider a concept. Can you really get it right when you choose your partner? Is there a straightforward method for this? And it's never that easy or never that simple. But is there a way that allows you to select the right partner? So I designed an algorithm. Well, mathematics isn't related to feelings, but this appears in my second book that is just released, and it says how you can find the right person. It's the pyramid theory, and we can help people to design their effective project by trying to form the right couple. Well, what happens when I meet somebody? What happens in my brain, in my emotional world when I meet somebody? Well, there are 4 phases. The first one is the spark. You meet somebody and something attracts you. or you like how he looks, or you find him attractive, but there's something that really moves you, and you think, well, I want to get to know this person better. But let's say that between that instant and falling madly in love with somebody, you have to use an ingredient that is called intelligence. In other words, that this spark has to go through the filter of intelligence. But why is that so important? Because when you fall in love, this produces a very big hormonal change. And brain change too. It increases serotonin and dopamine and oxytocin, which is the vitamin or the hormone of hugs or embraces. And the amygdala also changes, which is where fear is located. And you don't feel afraid, and you become very brave when you fall in love. And Plato said that, well, you know that love makes you be a very, very brave person. And what is most important, the prefrontal cortex that you have up front, which is the area where you pay attention, where you have concentration and problem solving and control of impulses, this is switched off. So then, if there's something that you know doesn't work because he's 20 years older or 20 years younger, or he's married or is from another country, or I know that this person is not convenient for me, your brain doesn't filter that. Why? Because your prefrontal cortex has been deactivated. So this is why I recommend that if there's a spark, I don't know, devote months, days, years, or whatever, to using your head and ask yourself 3 questions. And the first one, is this person convenient, or am I going to be a better person? Does he really get the best out of me? And then move on to a second stage, which is this according to my criteria, and what are my criteria? My criteria is what I recommend. In other words, that each one of us has, at a moment of peace and serenity, that we analyze our track record, our biography, our emotional wounds, and think how we want to be loved. And to be with somebody, I need them to have 3 things. Or that it be a person with values, or an intelligent guy, or an honest, or a sportsman, lovable or loving, and well, whatever. But if we have our criteria clear in our minds, when we meet somebody and something doesn't really fit, well, one has the possibility of saying, I know that this is not convenient for me, because these moments of peace and serenity, I'm aware that this is not the best thing for me. So first, the spark, and secondly, intelligence. So is this person convenient or not? And if I say yes, well, let's see if I now can fall in love, because it's not that easy falling in love. How many times do you meet people who seem to apparently cover everything, but there's something missing, and what is missing is that falling in love. And if it doesn't, well, in some people it appears very quickly, and in others they fall in love in the later stage. But if you really fall in love with somebody, the possibility of fighting for what you have is much lower. And then finally, if this spark, or if this falling in love and your intelligence works, what comes along is willingness. And I think that Dr. Enrique Rojas knows about this. And this is the possibility of postponing the reward, of looking after the details, the daily details. I decide that I want to look after this person in spite of the circumstances. And I also notice that although my feelings today are somewhat dampened, I still love this person. I still ask for forgiveness. And we are in a society where everything is based on feelings and everything is based on emotions. I feel comfortable, I feel uncomfortable, I want to go to work, I don't want to go to work. And our life is based on the sentimental world. If we don't control our sentiments or our feelings, I don't say we have to control them or repress them, but rather manage them. And I know that you know that if you have children and you love them a lot, but there are days when you're more nervous or whatever, and you're less patient, but that doesn't mean that you're going to cut the relationship with them, but it means that there's something that is happening to you, or there's something in their behavior that requires an equilibrium. But as the couple is an issue that requires lots of time, having done things properly is a key element in life. And which are the ingredients of love, and which or where are the differences between love and falling in love? And here the big expert is Dr. Enrique Rojas, who's going to explain this.
Si esto funciona. Bueno.
If this works, and it does, well, I think, Maria, that your presentation was very interesting. And, well, I'm going to be speaking again later on. But in this presentation, I want to explain the 4 ingredients of conjugal love, because I'd liked the concept of falling in love. and what she said. In other words, falling in love is very important because we are surrounded by people that are separated. I've been teaching for many years, and I'm a guest professor at the University of New York, and New York is the capital of the world where this happens most. And we have many cases of broken marriages, and it's tremendous. And I remember when I was a student of medicine, we didn't see any crisis in couples, but it's impressive what's happening right now. So it's incredible that Daniel Goleman has solved so many books and has pointed out the importance of emotional intelligence. And this is what Maria pointed out too. And it's very important, in other words, falling in love. I can't understand the life without you. You are the fundamental part of my project. And we psychiatrists have become like family doctors. I'm from Andalusia, although I've been living in Madrid for many years. And down south, when I'm dealing with a patient that comes from Andalusia to Madrid, you are a nerve doctor. Yes, I am a nerve doctor. So the psychiatrist is like the family doctor, but has become a psychologist, a psychiatrist, an educator, an advisor, a counselor. So where there are two or three things in relation to this first element. A person is convenient for one, or you fall in love when there's that cascade of sensations, because he helps me to grow as a person. I feel comfortable, and he's capable of closing the wounds of the past, and I start to have my head mortgaged, which is a very important issue. And Cervantes wrote the Quixote in 1605, and somebody said that it was in 1616, and somebody 1617, but Cervantes spoke about Dulcinea, the dame of my thoughts. Neither more nor less. Having somebody in your brain means that you're falling in love. And Don Quixote says, the 17th century, who gets marriage right doesn't have to do anything more right, more or less. And so we still have these falling in love symptoms, and our head is mortgaged, and we have to start to think that this person is fundamental for my life project. I cannot understand my life project without this person being inside that program. That is an essential issue. And then finally, I want that person to be the father or the mother of my children. That would be the phenomenology of the issue. But we have the four essential notes that can be found within love. The first one is the tetralogy, and love is a feeling, and love is a feeling that emerges from the affective world. So that means that there is complication. Well, I have that person in my mind. I've focused on that person. So you know that feelings are perfectly clear. But what does that mean exactly? Well, if you work on love improves. It's polished, and little by little, if you don't cultivate that love, it declines. But let's say that love is a living body. It's like alchemy and magic. It's a secret code, and it's complicity too. And it's a pretext for you to walk down that path. I don't believe in eternal love. I believe in love that is developed day in, day out. And love is a feeling that has to be developed. Well, one of the big mistakes that we are witnessing in society consists in thinking that love is only about sentiment, so that it comes and goes. And therefore, it means that, well, that it cannot be controlled. What a big mistake. Well, because the second element is intelligence. I have a book. My penultimate book is called Cinco Consejos del Departamento de Inteligencia. And intelligent doesn't mean that you're a very clever guy. No, I'm going to give you 3 or 4 brushstrokes. It has to do with synthesis capabilities. It has to do with distinguishing what is accessory and what is fundamental. And it's all about understanding the complexity of reality and its multiple connections. And intelligence is all about the art of managing things, the essential things of personal life. and this person is convenient for me. And well, apart from doctors, I studied 6 years of medicine and 4 more to become a psychiatrist. But I've also become an advisor, apart from giving medication to my patients. So this issue of intelligence is important. That is your brain, your enlightenment, and without losing any freshness in this love. How many loves are there without heads, headless loves? How many conjugal errors are there? Well, Marian knows this, and another of my daughters know this, Isabel, who's a psychologist, and she has, she specialized in this. She has her PhD on happiness, a statistical study on happiness, but Isabel is working a lot in this area of love and effectiveness or effectivity. So intelligence to know whether this person is the right person for you or not. So once love is working, intelligence is a key element. Well, there's a colloquial expression in Andalusia that is incredible. And it says, well, this person really knows how to manage his wife perfectly well, and that is intelligence. It's like reading somebody inside. It's like correctly reading your relationship with a person. And the third ingredient is willingness or persons. This is what Marian said. It's will capacity is the capacity to postpone the reward. And when you have willpower, you don't expect immediate results. Learning English in 1 week. Well, these are the advertisements you could see at train stations or at airports. And willpower is the crown jewel of behavior. If you have willpower, off you go. And with educated willpower, we are like dwarfs on the shoulders of giants. And in immature love situations, well, there's no willpower. There's a classical test that says, fundata era sino plena. In other words, the building didn't collapse because it's been built on solid and compact stones. How many effective buildings are made with very, very fragile rubble? And, well, willpower is absolutely essential to correct this failure, this specific issue. And there are lots of people that say, well, I've got tons of defects. And this is a person that I know perfectly well. You've got 3 defects, 3 flaws, or at least I've got 4 flaws, if you want. So these 3 flaws, well, you pull your socks up and you start to correct them. This is what we can see in conjugal life too. So it's impressive in the world of conjugal therapy how you can see these broken couples that recompose, that reform, and they start all over again. And love is like a mural I have in my house in Madrid. You know that, Maria. It's in the dining room where we have a tapestry from the 16th century that I bought in an attic in Madrid. And when I bought that tapestry, well, it's beautiful, it's spectacular. But there's an anecdote. I looked at it behind, and it was broken. Somebody had sewn it up, and it had been, well, left somewhere, and somebody picked it up and fixed it and repaired it. And that is what love is all about. It's like a tapestry. When you look at the back, there are errors, there are wounds, because that's what life is like. You have to be realistic. Let's be realistic, and let's have our feet firmly planted on the ground. And then the 4th note in relation to love, as I said before, has to do with feelings, with intelligence, and willpower and spirituality. Well, spirituality means that we're talking about the transcendence of love. And we then move from what is flat to vertical, from one plane to another, from what is natural to supernatural. And when that happens, it's impressive. And we have books that are the 3 major books that explain in the Western world what love is all about and how it arrives. We have the Jewish Torah, which is very important. It contains 5 major books, the Torah and the Gospel, the life of Jesus, described by 4 journalists. One was a tax inspector, another one was a doctor, and then we have the Quran. And I do this a lot with the Quixote because I have quite a few of these Quixotes in my house. And what I do is look up to see what it says, what Cervantes has to say. So you open the Quran and you ask Muhammad, which of your three children do you love most? Well, the smallest until he grows up, the sick one until he heals, and the traveler, well, until he comes back. And you read the Gospel, and you can see that a woman has been surprised in a situation of adultery. We're talking about 22 centuries ago, and she used to be stoned. And Jesus of Nazareth walked by and says, whoever's free of sins, please throw the first stone. And the Torah, well, it's impressive when, for instance, you see the story of Joseph in Genesis, and he's sold by his brothers to the Israelites, and he ends up in Egypt. And when his brothers come back, when things were not going very well, it's worthwhile reading this text. Joseph says, literally, forgiveness is superior when compared to hatred and revenge. And, well, now you can talk about conjugal happiness. It's about having a good health and a bad memory. Well, thank you very much for these words. Well, there's very little more to say. But it is true that at the end of the day, I think that we all have the wish we want to be loved and, well, exclusively by somebody. When somebody says, I don't want to be loved, I don't really deserve to be loved, or when I boycott a relationship at the beginning, or I'm in a relationship where I allow everything to happen, it's an open relationship, there is something within us that at a given point in time, well, you feel wounded. Because as human beings, what we want to do is get that love, a love that can last. And I'd like to be with people who say, look, I love you until it finishes, and when I no longer feel in love with you, I'm going to leave you. But that makes you feel very vulnerable. And I think that it's very important to feel loved in the long term in a couple. But for a couple to work at the beginning, there are a number of issues that you cannot see in your first dates. But I think that it's important for one to know how to manage during the courtship stage, and when you eventually become firmly in love and when you get married. Well, we have to look into a number of issues here. So the first thing has to do with your children. I've seen multiple conflicts of spouses because I didn't want to have any children. I told her I only wanted to have one child. So the issue for children is something that causes lots of pain and suffering. Because why do they arrive? Why do they not arrive? Up to what extent are we ready to have a child? And this is obviously something that you cannot address in the first dates. But when you get to know that person, you need to know what both people think. And I'm not saying, oh, should we adopt or should we not adopt? Or do you agree or do you not agree with donating your ovules? Because I've just seen somebody who's done that before. Well, I dealt with somebody before the session. But this produces a very big conflict because if not, you are going to suffer pain. Because couples, when they are consolidated, they do not rule out the option of having children, which is what they want. And they are open to it. But children, well, this has a marvelous thing and a beautiful thing. But, well, many times one is not ready. And talking about this and talking about how many and how we're going to do this. And, of course, well, it's a very interesting issue. But everybody has a connection with sexuality and with children that depends on our life and our system of beliefs, on how we've been brought up, and how we've been wounded and how we've been happy and how we've been reasonably sad. So this takes me to the second issue, which is sexuality and fidelity. But it's not the same thing for everybody, because for some people, fidelity means that you shouldn't look up pornography. And there are people that say that chatting is infidelity, and there are people that considers that you're unfaithful if you have sexual relations with somebody else, or flirt with somebody else. And in recent years, I've seen all kinds of rules and regulations applicable to couples. So you have to live with somebody that uses the same rules and that sees life as you do, because otherwise you're going to suffer much, much more. And I think that in this is a very difficult world to manage. Many things happen. And, well, we've had a pandemic, and now there's a volcano that has erupted. But we want to generate peace. in these issues that have to do with our coexistence, we have to address things in a straightforward manner. And one has to grow up, one has to debate things, but always based on tolerance. Because, well, we have to accept people as they are, with the lives they bring along with them. So here I'm referring to fidelity, which I think is great, but it indicates anything that is connected to sexuality. There are things that one is not willing to accept. In my consultation, I've seen some very extreme sexual situations where one feels wounded, because what I say is, if you, at the doctor's office, you ask what sexuality means for them, for everybody it has a different meaning. For somebody it's a wound, for somebody it's a certain kind of pleasure, and for others it's about seducing, for others it's a taboo issue, for others it's repression, for others it opens up a wound. And many of you people that are listening to me know that before I started to work in psychiatry, I worked in the field of child prostitution, and that really was like a before and after in my life, understanding the world of prostitution and pornography, speaking to the pimps and going to the brothels, and speaking to these children, young girls. And I've treated lots of people affected by sexual abuse, or with people that have been hurt in this field. And I know perfectly well that there are lots of women and lots of men that come along with sexual wounds that they've never told anybody about, and that this blocks their sexual life and therefore their life in a couple. And in the first and second book, I have some chapters on this, and I think that I've received 300 or 400 emails from people that have told me about that. So what they say is I don't have a sexual life in the couple, and it's perhaps something that we can solve, and it should hurt you as least as possible. And then there's another issue which has to do with economy, with money. And these couples that have broken because of money, because they don't know how to manage this, or because one of them is a miser, or somebody believes that money is there to be invested, another one to be saved. So the issue of money management, one has to observe that in the first stages. But money, could this be a reason for conflict? How can I manage it? Because you know that a miser is a horrible thing to put up with. And you know that somebody that is a spendthrift is also equally bad. And practically all the couples in the world go through these situations. So you need to have firm foundations, and you should know how to communicate, which is the other element, communication. And this is like the pillars of a relationship of a couple.
I know how to express what I feel, and the other person has to know what I mean. This is very clear, but it's not easy. And that's probably the big drama in all the crises of the couples in the world. Well, there are normally communication problems. If I say something to the other person that doesn't like what he hears, she doesn't know how to manage the conflicts. She only likes conflicts, or he only likes conflicts, because it triggers problems in places that there are no problems. So to learn how to communicate, to talk about the big topics in the world in a couple is something that is very important. And then there is another topic. Oh, you will smile. The family of the other part of the couple. It's very important. And I've heard stories of terrible terror films that the couples have been destroyed due to that problem. At the beginning of the relations, I remember a couple who came to see me. They have been 1 year. In the first meeting, he said, I love you, I like you very much, but you have to know that as soon as we get married, my mother will have to come to live with us. I would like you to know that. And if he has said that from the very first moment, you have also to think maybe your mother-in-law is fantastic, but maybe not. And the relationship will suffer. And then another couple where the woman in the couple said that I don't want your mother to come and live with us, and they didn't get married for that reason. So we have to take into account that problem as well. And in order to be able to maintain the balance, if the person that you are living with come from that family, he or she can be aware of things that we don't like. And one thing is to think it, the other one is to say it. And it's felt like an attack. So we live in the 21st century. As a patient told me that she has separated 6 times. Marian, it's impossible partner for the whole life, but that's an utopia. I know couples that are very uneven, but they have a nice life. But we have many tools and many things that if we don't know how to manage, enter as a poison in our relationship and prevent us from being happy. I know some who have a lot of problems of money, fidelity, etc., sexuality, things that are delicate. And we all have our own system of see our own life. Some enjoy more, you enjoy more life with your friends than with me. We all have a history behind, some emotional wounds and a way of being. We have to take care of, be careful with the problems. I'm very sensitive, or I depend on other people. I don't want to be alone. I'm a controlling person, and you have to be aware of that. And this generates tension in the relations due to my way of being. And this can lead us to problems in the crisis in the couple. And now I leave to you to close, just because you have written so many books on the management of a couple. Well, Marian, I'm going to collect, or I'm going to tell people who are listening to us, because I don't have more time, and I don't want about a book that I will introduce the 12th of October in Madrid. Martin Almeida will present it, and also my daughter. My daughter will be the one who presented. Everything you have to know about life, 14 lessons, that's the name of the book, on issues as love, will, happiness, and so on the chapter that we are talking about today. Guidelines, psychological guidelines for a couple with difficulties would be what I'm going to tell you now in these coming 10, 12 minutes. I used to say 2 things. One, the one that doesn't have a marital crisis, other is single or widow, or if it's different to be if you are a Spaniard or English or some other. Lord Byron said it's easier to die for a woman than live with her. So we are going to see a few guidelines for couples that have difficulties. I'm going to try to be very specific. We are in a world of research on couples that are happy with their relations, and they have been living for more than 10 years together. And we already have a certain idea. All the research papers are born by investigation. Guidelines prevent unnecessary discussions in the couples that work fine, that are very little discussions, because this is a very dangerous field, and the discussion becomes very often an attack. Hard and terrible things are said. So learn to prevent this is important. Secondly, fight in order to show the list of things that have happened in the past. All the things that we can tell each other is terrible. The memory is feminine. Many women said, the day my husband told me that, I was dressed in a blue dress, and it was in the afternoon. The list of things like that have to be closed in a cupboard under key. And when I say to people very often, and this is what the 2 who know most about this topic, Americans who are Gottman and Silberg, who are in the Institute of the Observatory of Behavior in New York, to learn to give in, and putting a good face. It seems very easy, but it's not that easy. We have to start doing it. Another interesting issue, to learn to talk to each other. the dialogue in couples with a good relationship. There is a language that is opened as a fan, the emotional intelligence, the capacity to blend the different instruments of rationale and affectivity. So it's the verbal language. I love you, I need you. I apologize, please forgive me. Antonio Machado, I love poetry, Spanish poetry of 1927 mainly. And Antonio Machado says, person to his wife, he was shy and he wrote something that, well, he said, Antonio Machado to his, that your eyes remind me of a summer night. The verbal language is important. The non-verbal language is also important. Everything that accompanies the word that is hidden in the personality. Take her by the hand, etc. And the language is the third one. The letters. This is to write a note down for the wife, the husband, leave it on the table. I apologize for what I said yesterday. I love you. You are my life. And celebrations. In the couples that are happy with the relations, everything is celebrated. It's very important. In my family, I have been 38 years married to Isabel. What is one of your great successes? My wife. In my CV, I'm married with Isabel. So celebrate. I celebrate the day that I decided to start going out with her, with something, drink a glass of wine, whatever. Celebration, it's very important. The language of the positive surprise. I have reserved a table in a restaurant in Madrid. Surprise the other. The great enemy of the marital love is monotony that destroys everything. Couples that, well, I know a gentleman from the north of Spain who has a monopolar depression. He's fine, but he's at the end of the visit. Oh, by the way, doctor, I forgot. I haven't had any sexual relations with my wife since 7 years. You are 50 years old. This is serious, and you say this at the end of the session. Well, next day we start with that. Sexuality is the bodily part of love, and it's fundamental. Well, communication, a healthy sexuality. One of the big frictions that the couple that don't work fine is sexuality. And we have to reach an agreement and talk about it with clarity but with delicacy. And it's impressive when the woman who doesn't have the feeling of the marital sense, the woman says, I have headache, back pain, I have the menstruation. We have to educate. One of the things where we see the generosity of a person, especially of a woman, the man who always wants sexual intercourse, is in donation, self-given. Although I don't want to, I'm tired, but I should. Well, it's important as well, and I'm going to underline this. This is something that when I heard this topic, I stop at it. Never talk about separation. Never. Never is never. Not as a threat, not as a boredom. No. And this is essential because we have to think very often that the complexity that love has is enormous. The love is physical, psychological, economic, as Marian said. It's social, it's personal. It's open in different interior landscapes that are inside of us. So this issue is very important as well. Another fundamental thing is in the couples that work with difficulties, where there are problems, recommend healthy books. I'm very in favor, I'm in the international movement on this issue in the States, that is bibliotherapy. Teach people to read books on issues related with psychology and also in other events. I tell you an anecdote. Since 4 or 5 years, I see a patient who works in a workshop in a workshop for cars of a high category. He is single. He came to the consultation the first time with his brother, his sister. He has problems of anxiety. He sleeps poorly. In the second visit, he told me, I told him, I'm going to recommend you a book. I have never read anything. What do you like? I like football. And, well, this seems unavoidable in our society. And then I like to see the broken life of famous people, celebrities. I love to look at that. Well, this is not very good for you as a human being. I'm going to recommend you a novel that is short but exceptional. If you read it, I'm going to give you a gift of two of my books. I'm not interested nor in the novel or your books. And the sister said, he's going to read it. He's going to read your book. And it's Juan Manuel de Prada was the author. Lucia in the Norwegian Night. And when he came, I have read the book. Now you are going to give me your 2 books. In 4 years, he has read 60 books, and now he's reading Don Quixote and one of my books. And it's impressive. Recommend a good book. Issues of Gary Chapman, American, The 5 Languages of Love. A very good book. Gottman and Schiller, 7 Golden Rules to Live in a Couple. Aaron Beck, professor in Pennsylvania, New York, and that has dedicated his books to the couple crisis. Love is never enough, and in Spanish, it has been translated by an editorial that it's not enough with love, solo con el amor no basta in Spanish. And then Intelligent Love. I have the satisfaction that the Intelligent Love has been translated into German and Russian. And specific books that help you to understand this whole topic. So I want to end with 2 or 3 ideas. Love has a high percentage of psychological handicraft. The craftsmen don't go rapidly. We are in the era where we all keep on rushing. But to read a good book that helps you to understand the characteristics of love, there is no love without culture. Ignorance in such an important issue gives this result. The first psychological epidemic in the Western world is not depression, is not anxiety, is not stress. The first is the divorce, one after the other. Before important people got divorced in Italy, France, and Spain, now the one who is selling potatoes in the center of Madrid has just divorced from his wife, her husband. But I'm going to end with 2 authors. One is a poet from 27, Miguel Hernández. And his poetry is fantastic. And he says, with respect to love, you will come to my garden in the places where the flowers are. I will be with you. Winston Churchill, Nobel Prize of Literature, Prime Minister to occasion, one of the big masters of international politics, a true reference point, says, in war, determination. In the defeat, resistance. And in victory, magnanimity. Thank you very much. I think that after this, we could now, if there are any questions, and otherwise we can keep on talking. In love, we can talk about many things, but I think if there are a few questions around here, Marian, I prefer you to answer the question. You are in Madrid and I'm here. I have a plane to catch within a short while. If there are some questions from the audience or from... Yes, one question whilst you look at the iPad, if there are questions. There is an issue that you have mentioned. First, thank you very much for this tandem that is a master in relations, coupled relations, and multiple ideas, but also for me, after 30 years being married. But there is an issue that I think is relevant in our society, that I have listened to you very often, the issue of invasion of pornography, and how this is, from your point of view, as a patient, as physicians who deal with patients, how this has an influence, how we have to explain in our families, in our environment, that is something that is destructive. It is distancing us. The one who knows most about pornography is an American, Peter Kleponis, I think he said was the name, and he's dedicated fundamentally to this topic. Well, I'm dealing with depressions, but Kleponis has published a book in Spanish that is just called Pornography. Before the pandemic, I was in Oklahoma, in the north of Texas, giving some lectures in Tucson. He says, this author says, more than half of the couples that separate in the United States is because the man is asking in intimate relations what he sees on the screen about pornography. Pornography is terrible. There is an anecdote. I'm going to tell it. It was Marian, you remember probably. I was seeing a boy that had anxiety, a young boy, 20-odd years from Andalusia. I asked him what he liked, apart from his fundamental issue that was anxiety and insomnia. And I asked him, do you see pornography? And when the boy went, you said, what? You don't ask that for a young boy, such a thing. You have to ask him, how much pornography do you see? A few days spent, went away, passed by, and I asked another young man, how much pornography do you see? He said, the normal thing. And what's the normal? Well, every 2-3 days, and weekends, 2-3 hours. Pornography has changed education on sexuality. It is terrible, and we know what it is. And pornography and masturbation are a binomial, where we are prisoners of sexuality. To be free, you have to turn off the screens and prevent that. The pornographic journals, well, there are no any longer because they have in the mobile, and it is terrible now. It's a serious damage. Yes, I think that, Luis, that is something that I believe is important, and this is a personal experience due to I have several porno actresses, and then we have addicts to pornography. An anecdote that happened to me before summer. I was with a patient who is a boy who works in a company from his 20-odd years, but he hooked on pornography, left his girlfriend, he lost his work, his job, and one day he comes and we talked very intensely on pornography. But Marian, I do what I want. I'm free to do what I want. And that day, I had seen one of these actresses who came to my consultation because she had anxiety, but now we are friends, and she's leaving the world of pornography. But she's quite known. And I asked her to greet this patient of mine. So she entered the consultation, told the patient my nickname in pornographic content is such, and he looked at her and said, I know you. What do you do here? I have left that. So there was a conversation between both where she was telling him what was in the background and what she felt. I'm 30 friends who want to know her. Is the way of us leaving pornography for good. I think always when science talks about an issue, people understand it better. When there are so many news, to give a little science and realism helps. There are multiple studies on what is pornography producing in the brain, and dopamine that generates insensitivity that you couple with real things in a noxious way. And it's very hard to have a real sexual intercourse in the day-to-day with the real partner. It's very hard. Problems of sexual dysfunction, but the terrible thing that has been discovered, the more pornography you say, less prefrontal cortex you have, you are less intelligent. You can't see what is accessory from fundamental, lower capacity-making decision-making capacity, and more problems when you have to choose couple the same part of the brain that helps you to do good things. This management of oneself in the prefrontal cortex, the less prefrontal cortex, we have less owner of ourselves. Marian, I interrupt you because one thing that I have said, addiction to pornography is more serious than cocaine addiction. It affects the brain circuit. When you have been a series of days or hours without seeing pornography, the displacement of all your attention towards that field to seeing sexual explicit images. You can tell about this issue. It's a very, very serious problem. It's a very enormous problem. I've seen an actor who is separated 3-4 times, has several children, and he comes because his daughter, who is 15, 16, is surprised when she sees that the father has pornography in her mobile. Dad, you are sick, go and see the doctor. And Dr. Rojas, this is my life. For me, pornography is daily, and I want more. Even at some point in time, I even think about pornography with children. This is a very serious pathology. We are talking about something really very serious. In my book, Everything on Life, there's a whole chapter, 30 pages, dedicated to pornography. Thank you very much. We will have to finish, Marian, as well. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Marian. We hope to see you soon here again. Thank you and congratulations for this meeting. I now keep on seeing it from here. Thank you very much.